Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First, we'll do a roll call. For attendance. Dale? Dewey?
Yes.
Dewey? Wendy?
Here.
Jim? Missy? Lloyd? Lloyd, I thought Lloyd was on. His volume's on, but I can't hear him.
That's mine. It should be muted.
Okay. And Rebecca here. Recognition of visitors?
I did not have anyone that requested to speak this evening.
Okay. Next we'll approve the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Motion by Dewey. We have a second?
Missy, second.
Second by Missy. We'll do a roll call vote. Dale?
Yes.
Dewey? Wendy?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Missy?
Yes.
Lloyd? And Rebecca, yes. Motion carries. Cobra Pride.
I'd like to recognize Cobra Care and our daycare crew. Once again, they've moved spots again this year. They are in the middle school media center. In the past, they've worked out of the activities entrance area, but with all the construction and everything, they've moved and they've settled in and they're making things work again. So just wanted to recognize and thank all those folks for the great job they're doing.
Okay, thank you. Approve consent agenda. Before we approve the consent agenda, is there anything anyone would like to pull out? If not, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Jim. Motion by Jim. Have a second? Do we have a second? Second by Dale. We'll do a roll call vote. Second by Dale. We'll do a roll call vote. Dale? Wendy? Dewey? Jim? Wendy? Missy? Jim? Lloyd? Missy?
Yes.
Lloyd? And Rebecca, yes. And Rebecca, yes. Motion carries. New business. 7.1, discuss approve insurance. Brian Wolf and Jay Standiger.
All right, got a quote from EMC this year, and the premium is pretty consistent with last year. They added an inflation guard for cost of construction, and they increased the property value by $6 million. The premium went from 54,000 or from 50,000 to 4,000. So that's a good rate. We could switch to a $5,000 deductible and save about $2,900 too. So last year's premium was 98,000. This year it's 103. Everything else staying the same.
Do we have any questions?
Work comp, get that out there, that's what Grandview School, that's what was with last year. It's obviously covering our employees if they get injured or got killed or something. Premium last year was 37,000, this year it's 120, so 25% reduction. That is due to your experience mod, which is set by the state, which is based on your claims, your historic claims. So your claims have been pretty favorable the last few years, so you're really seeing a nice mod and a nice discount on premium there. So question on the work now? Yeah, I like that.
That's good. Thank you. If we have no questions, can I get a motion to approve 7.1? Motion by Jim. Second by Dale. We'll do a roll call vote. Dale? Dewey? Wendy? Jim? Missy? Lloyd? And Rebecca, yes. Motion carries. Thank you. 7.2, discuss approved preliminary budget for 2021, 2022. Amy Lake.
You can use the microphone too, that way it picks up. Well, you just- Yeah.
So I'm gonna be presenting your prelim budget for 21-22. As you know, kind of the legislature's still undecided on what they're doing, if they're doing anything. So obviously, we have to budget very conservatively, assuming they're not gonna do anything. But a big piece too is enrollment, as you've kind of seen the monthly enrollment reports. They've kind of slowly been declining, so we're gonna use those numbers to budget very conservatively with that piece. So this year's budget, or this coming year's budget, is based on an enrollment of 990 students. And the last time we did revised budget for 2021 was, we were at 1,016. So obviously, that's gonna have an effect on state aid. Looking at the overall picture, I gotta fix it. Click it one more time. And there. Overall revenue, we're looking at a decrease of about 358,000. And that's just our normal funding. I did keep out CARES funding because I wanted you to see the picture without all of that extra funding. So we have a realistic picture. And expenditures are looking like they'll be going up about 32,000. So not terrible. If we go to the next slide, it kind of will break down the revenue and where those reductions are coming from. About 112,000 is coming from just the state aid formula. So like, as I mentioned, right now we're budgeting for a flat increase because we don't know what legislature is doing. That decrease right now is mainly due to the enrollment change, the enrollment drop. So another piece is our compensatory revenue of about 115,000. That piece is based mainly on free and reduced lunch applications. So obviously last fall, the whole school year, we were offering free lunches for the state, for the federal government. So a lot of families that normally would fill out those apps did not, and that affected this piece of our revenue. And it's happening statewide. All districts are seeing that, so it's not unique, but unfortunately, legislature didn't do anything to correct that piece either.
Yeah. And it's difficult too, because I mean, when you're get free lunch at school, there's really not an incentive.
There's not, yeah.
To get free lunch.
Yeah, and they did briefly talk about it, like maybe trying to find a way to reconcile that, but it never came to fruition, so. And then the other big piece on the general fund state aid, the LTFM aid is going down by about 91,000. And that is because this year will be the first year that we're gonna start paying off the debt service piece from our levy from last fall. So that amount of money will roll over into the debt service side. So we're still getting that aid, it's just going to debt service to pay off that debt instead. On the federal side, our title funds, as of today, we still don't know how much we'll be getting for that. So I just left that flat as well. They keep saying they're gonna let us know. I think it was supposed to be last week, but we still don't know. Well, exactly, so Shane will have lots of time to work on the apps. And then also on the federal side, we're getting additional CARES funding. I know we kind of had those discussions. So ESSER 2 funds, we're getting about 487,000. And then ESSER 3 we'll be applying for over the summer, and that should be just a little over 1 million. That is not in the budget. Well, I should take that back. The ESSER 2 is, but right now we have it going in and out. So because we have specific plans for it. As you talked about the bus purchases, we're doing the bus purchasing. We'll be doing some expenditures for student mental health needs in the form of counseling, that kind of thing. So it's that those two pieces are in and out. So it doesn't really affect the budget because it'll be flat, if that makes sense.
It's one-time money, so it's.
Yep. Yep, and that's,
Right,
Yep.
right.
and the pieces I showed you earlier, that was not put in there, so. And it'll, the last piece of that, yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, the ESSER two funds, we actually have until September of 23 to spend, and the ESSER three, we have until September of 24 to spend, so. The goal is to kind of spread those out and keep it within our budget as long as we can.
So do you have to give those monies back then if you don't get?
Well, it's actually a reimbursement, so we have to spend it before we can collect it, so. So it won't be a, it won't be a hardship if we have to give anything back, because we just won't have it in the first place, so. Okay, and then the last piece on the revenue is the levy revenue, and that will decrease by about 50,000, and that also is due to that piece of LTF revenue going to the debt service fund out of the general fund to pay off that debt. So the next slide just kind of breaks down just a couple things on the expense side as far as increases. One main one, big one, is 147,000 because this is the first year we're going to be paying Zed for their building lease for the new building. And then the second piece you talked about is we'll be spending about 150,000 on 2 new buses using that CARES money. So the next slide, we look at the overall general fund budget. And this is all of the unassigned and all of the reserve funds within the general fund. That first line unassigned, we're looking at ending the 21 school year at about 8% fund balance. And we'll be hopefully ending June 22 at about 10.37% fund balance. So overall, just using our own funds without the extra CARES funds, I think we're still in a very good position. We'll still be building up that fund balance, as is the goal. Because that especially comes in handy at times like this when we might be looking at a shutdown. Because if that happens, we won't get funding from the state until they go back into, they approve a budget and they can go back to work. So fortunately. So in the other pieces, we've got staff development, and that's specifically for kind of what it says, staff training, and that can be for teachers, non-certified staff, for board members. So that's the pieces. LTFM, that piece, we've got a nice hefty fund balance right now, about 392,000. And we'll kind of maintain that. We have to use some of that for health and safety requirements. But at this point, with all the construction that's going on, that will kind of free up some of this money, especially ongoing for the next few years. We won't be having to use that as much because construction will take care of some of those needs that we had. Operating capital, we use that mainly for equipment purchases, tech needs, that kind of thing. So we usually try to use that before we dig into unassigned when we can. The same thing with learning development, gifted and talent and basic skills. We're going to use those funds first for specific student learning needs. So those are kind of what we use those and not leave a balance in those. Safe schools we use for our SRO contract, and then for any upgrade needs for school safety. Like this year we used them to buy some new cameras. And then medical assistance is very specific. It's mainly for medical needs for very severe disability students. So that one's fairly restrictive on what we can use it for. But that's our overall look at the general fund. If anybody has any questions on that. Okay, and then the next slide is just all of our other funds. Now, most of the food service is kind of an in and out. We're still kind of up in the air as far as what program will be operating in the fall, whether it's going to be another free program or if it's going to be back to our regular or hybrid. So we're still working that one out. Community ed, even after the year we had, they really did a great job of maintaining and getting creative, and keeping their programs running. Excuse me. So overall, community ed's turning out really well. Construction, this will be a quick, fun turnaround. Assuming everything's done in August, we'll have this account into 22 for a couple months, and then that one will be gone. The one thing with construction is if we happen to get to the end of the program and say we have some LTFM funds left, we can use those. Obviously, still ongoing. We don't have to shut down the construction fund. We can still continue to use those funds for LTFM needs. So And then debt service, it's kind of an in and out. We receive funding for just the principal and interest that we're repaying for this over this next year, so. And then our scholarship fund kind of is just kind of an in and out as well. Those are all of our other funds.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions? Any questions for Amy on budget? We need to get more kids.
Yeah.
Can I get a motion?
You're gonna come up a little bit, they're at 49 last time I saw it.
We've had a couple more first and second graders too, so the numbers have changed in the last week even, so. That's why you figure conservatively and hope that they. Hope that's your cop. Yep.
Can I get a motion to approve 7.2? Motion by Missy. Can I have a second? Second by Jim. We'll do a roll call vote. Dale? Dewey? Wendy? Jim? Missy? Lloyd? And Rebecca, yes. Motion carries. 7.3, discuss approve 2021-2022 resolution for membership in the Minnesota State High School League.
They, as you remember, the first bill they came out with, it did come down from what they originally were going to charge. And now they've kind of come up with a per student type fee. It's still higher than what it's been, but, they are projecting to get things back to normal after this next school year. So the fees are still going to be a little bit higher, not as bad as last year, but they figure that they will be solvent after this year when we get back to having people pay for tournaments and that kind of thing. Yes. Yes.
There's no other questions. Can I get a motion to approve 7.3?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Dewey. We have a second? Second by Wendy. We'll do a roll call vote. Dale? Dewey? Wendy? Jim? Missy? Lloyd? And Rebecca, yes. Motion carries. 7.4, approve MSBA Association dues and policy services renewal dues for 2021, 2022.
Pretty much what it says, just renewing that for the year. And I know we did talk about, beginning to review our policies rather than just the changes, but start going through them in a systematic way where we're looking at them on a yearly basis. Or at least a section of them.
Can I get a motion to approve 7.4? Motion by Jim. Do we have a second? Second by Missy. We'll do a roll call vote. Dale? Dewey? Wendy? Jim? Missy? Lloyd? Rebecca, yes. Motion carries. 7.5, discuss approve MREA membership renewal for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
Yep, it's just renewing our annual membership to MREA, which
What does that cost?
it's about 2,000. That's remained, yeah. For the services they provide, I think it's been, and I think, going to the convention every year has been a good thing for us as a district as well. There's, like I tell staff, I said, there's nowhere else you're going to go to a convention where the sessions are you know, geared toward schools that are our size and outstate. Yeah. Yep. Good organization. Been real helpful. They provided a number of meetings and updates throughout the year too that were really helpful, you know, with just consolidating some of the information that was coming out that was helpful.
Motion by Jim. Can I get a second? Second by Missy. We'll do a roll call vote again. Dale? Dewey? Wendy? Jim? Missy? Lloyd? And Rebecca, yes. Motion carries. 7.6, discuss approve purchasing 2 used buses.
If you recall, Dave and I kind of had talked about lease returns and that they were pretty rare, that it really wasn't an option. Well, we have a unique situation. The salesman actually called Dave and said, hey, we have two 2019 lease returns that only have 25,000 miles on them, which is exactly what you would want. And those were both about 75,000 a piece. So rather than buying one new bus that we probably would be in a pinch to get before the beginning of the school year, we would actually have these two would actually be delivered before the school year started, and they said they would deliver them. And that would really put us back on track to where we needed to be, where, you know, we're still running that one, and I believe it's a 2000 bus, where we would have our fleet back to where we want it. No, he was going to go do that. But I just wanted to get it approved in case it's good to go. We can move ahead with that. We did get it approved by the state. MDE approved it. So
this is basically we do. You can say no.
yes. Yeah, gotcha. No, the one we ordered is. The new one that we ordered is. 83, both of them are, which is identical to what, I mean, if we went out and shopped, that's what we would buy. Okay, yeah. And like I said, the big thing is it's a unique opportunity because there are some school districts that did not run their buses as much. So to have a lease return with only 25,000 miles on it is, yeah, it's a unique, I'm glad the guy called Dave because we had kind of given up on the whole idea of finding that because he said normally they don't. Yeah. But so when he called them and he's like, yeah, no, just so you know, we've got 2 that are coming in if you're interested. So like, absolutely.
Okay, motion by Dewey. Second by Dale. We'll do another roll call vote. Dale? Dewey? Wendy? Jim? Missy? Lloyd? And Rebecca, yes. Motion carries. 7.7 enrollment update.
If you look at the total numbers, and this is kind of why I wanted to change the enrollment update, so it is the way it is. If you look at the graph on the left, you know, it actually shows that we had 1047 to 1054. It shows that we grew a few, but when you actually look at our K-12 numbers, we're down 24. So there's always that variability, but I think that paints a more accurate picture of the actual number of kids that are in the classrooms that we're talking about. that you're getting the funding for. Because sometimes if you don't look at if you just put numbers in there and they're not reflective of who you're getting funding for, I think it's misleading. So when you look at the actual number, that's the 1,003 was what we ended up with. Or I'm sorry, 979 on the far right.
So we report that once a year, four times a year?
4 times a year, yes. And they are snapshots in time. And I know there are days where it's like, well, we got 2 kids the day after that. Yeah, but it at least it's giving us.
So we report it 4 times a year, but they pay at the end of the.
It's actually on a daily basis is what, I mean, your weighted average daily membership, your WADMs is what they would, is what you're actually getting. Yeah. Yep.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. 7.8 Z report. Well, we can't hear Lloyd.
Yeah, no, they broke ground. They had the groundbreaking ceremony this past week, and yep.
Lloyd went to that.
They're still trying to figure out I think Lloyd said that they did agree to just leave the sliver of land that they were in question over and just reduce the number of parking spots, because ultimately we are buying that land, Zed as in we, from Casa Manorville Schools, and there was a discrepancy on that. So rather than make things have to start all over again, they just agreed to leave it with the way it is and just reduce the number of parking spots, which I think, to be honest, I think that there are plenty of parking spots there. At the ALC, there's maybe 20. And they had, I believe it's close to 134 that we'll end up with, but they were going to have 175. So it reduced the number of parking spots, but I think it'll still be ample parking space for the facility.
So let the tractors in and out of the field, they keep the restoration for that.
Yep. Other than that, I think that's kind of what Lloyd and I talked about.
Okay. 7.9 principals report.
Yeah.
All right, so end of the year trip we took to Air Insanity was a huge success, and I just wanted to thank team for putting that on. If you saw some of the pictures on Facebook, it was a ton of fun. To the bus drivers, they just kept going round robin, and they were very flexible for all that, and then also the teachers too. So it was a great day, and fun was had by all, and I'm sure some of you heard the stories from your families around. Literacy plan, K3 literacy plan, the rough draft is due July 1st. I did submit that today and then changed it to Shane's name, and then that can be revised and things as we hire new people and new staff. I just suggest that you kind of go back through that just because it is in rough draft form. Report cards went out. Thank you to Melissa and Amanda for getting that done. And just so you know, we did go all standards this year, K5, and so that looked very different. But we did a lot of work on Infinite Campus, and thank you to Amanda for all that. And we will continue to work on that. So Infinite Campus is something, just so you know, our teachers, I had them fill out a survey. It's something they advocated for to have more training on. So just so you can, as you move forward, you can kind of think about that. We had a move up day. There were tears and there were happiness. We had some kids that were totally crying to go to their new class. I don't want to leave. And then you had some kids that were just skipping down the hall. I had never done a move up day with elementary, so it was very interesting as I had kids in tears. So I learned something new. We also did track and field day at the end of the year. So thanks to Shelley and Hala, and thanks to that beautiful track. And I know all the hard work that you guys have all put in. And section track was a huge success, and schools around us were very, very grateful, even though I think we picked the hottest 2 days probably to compete as possible. But it looks awesome out there and something to be very, very proud of. Shane and I have been meeting a lot to kind of do that transition and just trying to share all the information I can with him. Like Amy just alluded, Title I is not open yet. I just checked again today. It is not open yet, but that's something, you know, that's a funding source that we get. So we want to make sure that we get that. And I just communicate with them as we move forward. Summer school started today. That's through, you know, Targeted Services and Zed. And so they're down in the middle school, and we had a couple scared kids today too, because you're in a different building. You're in the middle school building. So we will continue to help trying to transition that. And our numbers are strong. So we have 3 teachers, and so they were good. We had almost 100% attendance. I think we were only missing 1. So that was great for those who have signed up. Last year, I know we adopted a policy, and I just kind of want you to be familiar with that. So you adopted a policy on dyslexia. And so just so you know, we use FAST to kind of be that pre-screener. But if we were to ever have a kid that we identify, we will have to do something further. And I would suggest the Barton is what other districts use. And so just so, as you kind of move forward, and if we were to have any of those people, I just want you to kind of be aware of that. Our numbers in kindergarten, they continue to kind of watch them. They are coming up, but just kind of continue to watch them. I want to know that, let you know that K1 are both over 25% special ed. So our numbers in the K1 are very, very high. So as the needs go forward, that's something to think about. On that same note, I just want to tell you that our early intervention is paying off. Even though we had all the COVID, our numbers, our data that I just submitted today was just as high or even higher at some grade levels for where our kids need to be in that average norm. So thank you to Cheryl Pischke and Sarah Gustafson and all those people that help with those, you know, and the gen ed teachers that help with all that reading intervention. So even though you think, oh God, those are small, but if we have those smaller numbers and we do those early interventions, they are paying off. So I want to commend those people that work with our young youth all the time. And then I just want to thank all of you. I want to thank you for this opportunity. I hope that you gained as much from me as I did from you, and we learn and we grow together. And that's a cool thing about education is Schlick will have to be still taking my phone calls and helping me as I don't know, or I'll be calling Amy. So I wish you all the best. You're a great district. You have great staff. You have great students and great communities. So keep up the good work. I know that this is a thankless job that some of you have, and I appreciate all that you do for education. So thank you.
We want to thank you too. Wish you well in your position. I know you're probably going to run out because that's what you've been doing after the meeting. So I want to thank you now before you leave.
As Mary mentioned, we have been meeting quite regularly, and thank you, Mary, for the information being shared as we transition after the consent agenda with the new assistant principal and the new activities director. I met with that individual today and starting to hand off some duties there. So we're seeing in the next couple of weeks full transition. As Mary moves to her new position, I'll be moving down to the elementary school. But thank you, Mary, on all the meetings that we've been having so that I can hit the ground running in that fashion. End of the middle school year went very well. We collected Chromebooks. We still have a few Chromebooks out there, but we're working together to get those back. I'm sure that at the high school, there may be some out there as well. Mr. Luderman put together a couple letters that we sent out to those individuals, and hopefully we'll get as many of those devices back. Otherwise, Deputy Dave and I may be taking some neighborhood rides around, seeing what we can find in different houses. We also took a first time, a couple day trips in the middle school, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. Each had an individual day at Expo Park. Very, very fun days. We're lucky the weather cooperated very well on each of the 3 days. The one day, it looked like it was going to be messy, so we quickly switched it to a different day. And it turned out that the 3 days that we went over that way were great days to have day trips with hikes and games and kickball and walks around the zoo. So I think it might be something worthwhile looking ahead of day trips that way, because the price tag is really fantastic, and that the only fee is the bus drive the bus ride over to Oxbow. And we took 2 buses back over there. One bus driver jumped on the bus with the other one. They came back, so they were able to do other things here. And then they came back and picked us up that way. 8th grade recognition. We had a ceremony. It was in the PAC. The students did a great job introducing their slides. I know many of you have seen that ceremony in the past. I would say that there wasn't as many parents there, but I believe that's because it's being streamed. And I do believe that some parents, and it's, you know, it's at 1:30 in the afternoon also, so individuals have to work. But I do think that that's another sign that streaming sometimes may pop up, you know, where it's, hey, I can't make it there. Or maybe there's grandma and grandpa in a different state that get to watch their grandchild introduce the slide. Risa has done a fantastic job wrapping up the odds and ends. I've been working with Mr. Luderman, who will be working with the incoming assistant principal in the middle school. And of course, I'm not going anywhere, so I'll continue to work as the transition continues. But I think we're in the good place with middle school, especially with Mr. Luderman doing he's always been the 6-12 principal the last couple of years, and he's had his hands in it, doing a lot of the heavy lifting with scheduling and stuff like that. So I think we're in a very good spot to welcome on a new administrator in the middle school. Transitioning to the activities portion, we had a fantastic end of the spring season for our sports. First off, the baseball and the softball teams both entered postseason as a number 5 seed, and they both won their first game. So they had an upset over the number 4 seed that put them into a weekend tournament. Unfortunately, on the softball side, I don't think they're very used to winning that first game, because many of the softball players then had graduation parties, some of their very own, on that Saturday. So we had one of our all-conference players wasn't at the second round game because her parents made her be at her own graduation open house, which I can understand. So softball lost in the next games, and baseball did as well. They won the first game, made it to the weekend, and lost out from there. But a good ending to the season. It was one of our more successful seasons for softball on the wins and losses. But all of you have heard me talk many times that that's not what success is defined by, the wins and losses. But wins do make people feel better, and I think the softball program ended on a high note, with a lot of girls having an opportunity to play and doing some good things on the field. Baseball, same thing, started off kind of slow, got some more momentum. At one point, they beat the number 2 team in the state in Lourdes. That was kind of a highlight before the section playoffs. Track and field, we hosted section here on the brand new track. It was awesome. It was extremely hot, as Mrs. Morum mentioned, that Tuesday and the Thursday. Nothing but compliments from the teams that come here. I cannot say enough what a fantastic job our track coaching staff, including Kim Swanson, Shelley Bungham, Tony Benningson, Mrs. Hintz, and Bruce Huber still comes back. They put on one heck of a track meet. Every time anyone comes to our track meets, they walk out very complimentary of not only our facilities, but the way that they're ran. And that's attributed to Kim Swanson and her crew. They put that on. I greet people, tell them where to park, and I'm kind of a handshaker, and I've picked up a measuring stick and I measure high jump. You know, that's about the extent of what I'm doing out there. But Kim is the circus leader, and she puts on one heck of a show. On Thursday, I had the opportunity to hand out the awards of the section meet. First time I've been at a track section meet, and it's just like wrestling where the top 2 advance, and there's tears and there's joy, and there's event after event, and we had a podium out there. So I'm constantly opening up medals, and I was the person handing out the medals. And we had one individual make it to state in Owen Petershon, and Owen placed in both of his events, the 110 hurdles and the 300 hurdles, and he took a 4th and I want to say 5th place finish. So he got a 4th and a 5th. So a great highlight for one of our juniors that will be back, and looking for great things out of him. I was talking to his father this week, today, and everyone that beat him in the 110s was a senior. So Owen's really hopeful of like, hey, but you know, we've been around sports well enough to know that there's always a freshman or a sophomore or someone else will pop up, but it makes you feel good when you take 4th and 1, 2, and 3 were seniors. You're like, I could do this. So we were wrapped up also with the trap. This past Saturday was the Alexandria big state meet. we had a young lady that was in third place after the first couple rounds, and she was right in there. And unfortunately, her last round wasn't her best display of shooting, but it was a great showing by Triton Trap team. And I want to thank Mr. Schlichting. He puts a lot of hours into that, and it's because he likes the activity for the kids. I know that Mr. Kelly helps out also, but I want to recognize Schlick. You do a lot of the heavy lifting for that program since you got it started. With that, kind of transitioning into elementary, and I'll hand off to Mr. Luderman.
I don't have any changes in jobs or anything to talk about or transitions, but it's been an interesting time nonetheless. The end of the school year was interesting. You know, it seemed like a breath of fresh air, to be honest, even though it was really warm out at that time. A breath of fresh air to bring back some of those culminating and important experiences for kids and families. You know, and reflecting on the past year and a half, I was going through some stuff, and the main thing we talked about at first was your culminating experiences. We're going to do our best for you. A year ago, we didn't get to do the things. I know we did a golf cart piece for prom, and the graduation we did in our cars, but it felt good to have a somewhat normal experience for our kids and families this spring with prom in the middle of May. The graduation, obviously, I wanted to thank you for your patience with the change, then another change on top of that, but all things considered, I think we made the right choice in doing that. So the end of the school year, it was busy, obviously with a few things stacked on the end there, but I think overall a positive experience for our students and families. So we're excited for that. If you've seen the press the last few days, there's been talk on graduation rate. Has anybody seen that in the papers? Our rate that was reported from 2020 was 93.4. Okay. The average in the state is 83.8, I believe. So we're above the state average. And that's been close to where we've been in previous years. So one piece to remember, you're like, well, it should be 100. You're right, it should be. And you can correct me if I'm wrong with this, but if some of our students are continuing, some of our students that receive special education and transition-based experiences, those don't count toward your graduation rate because they're still attending school. So I wanted to make sure and explain that, but we've been within the 93 to 95 range. And we're in that range for this school year as well. So if you see it in the papers, I want to make sure and explain that to you here tonight.
And it would be nice if they, because the other thing that they don't consider is, let's say a kid had a situation where they finished a year later, that doesn't show up either. You know, I think it's important that, you know, when you look at graduation, there are kids that are graduating, but you know, our special ed kids are eligible until age 21. And I think it's a great thing that they take advantage of that and use that to develop those life skills and those transition skills to get them into the work world. So it just seems sort of funny that actually was against you when they continue their education.
I don't know if it's intentional to penalize the school. I think it can come off that way for sure. If you look at the report and all the information they have, the number of students, you know, that graduated per male and female and all that and on and on and on. And then they have the continuing piece. But what's printed a lot of times is just the graduation, right? So in that way, Jim, you're right, the press just pull the one identifier and go with that. So. Wanted to make sure and explain that to you. In terms of work going on right now, it's busy, right? You can see it around the building, a number of changes going on here and a number of new staff. But overall, we feel that will lead to some growth and improvement, and we're excited to move forward here. So I didn't have a lot tonight, but wanted to share that with you. So, any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
I'll keep mine brief too, but you know, the big thing is what's going on in the building. You know, I'm not going to lie. It kind of took Dave and I both by surprise because the construction manager told us that first day was going to be kind of a move-in day and things would be kind of gradual and not to worry a whole lot. And before long, it was like this is more than a move-in day. The ceiling tiles were coming down the first day. You know, they've wrapped up some things already with their schedules. So it is good that they've gotten a lot done already, because that clock is ticking and we want to be ready when school comes back. But overall, progress is on track. The one thing that I noted in my superintendent report was the variable speed drives for the air handling motors. They're coming, but they're coming at a point later than what they wanted. So they identify that as a risk, because that would be something that would slow things up. But overall, the ceiling tiles are close to being ready to go back in the elementary area. So we will actually be able to do kind of a normal cleaning cycle in the elementary. The high school wings, of course, that's a little bit different story, but the way they've been doing the waxing is they're moving everything to one side of the room, waxing it, letting it dry, and then coming back, moving everything to the other side of the room and waxing the other side. So they've got a good routine, and we've coordinated that. We're having weekly meetings with the construction folks. So making sure we're not tripping over each other when we're doing the things that we're trying to do. Parking lot wise, as you saw, there were a couple little mishaps. They did cut a wire, but that's been fixed. They did bend a light pole. That's been ordered to be replaced. Other than that, for the most part, things are on track. One thing that came up with, they had to remove some of the fencing. And Ms. Swanson asked, as far as for the track, that when you walk in just past the ticket booth, there's that grassy area back there. The track teams utilize that for what they call their camps, I guess, what you would call it, during track meets. Years ago, we had a little gate put in there to utilize that because it really was not accessible. But now that whole fencing is down, Kim asked if we could just leave it down, because access in and out of there for those track kids actually improves things, and it actually opens things up back there. So Dave and I looked at that, and I think that's a very doable option. I know that, you know, you run into well, are you going to have kids running around back there? I think as long as we keep the fencing behind the bleachers that are up, it eliminates a lot of that. And to be honest, I think you're always going to have kids wanting to play. And the area that they play over by the electrical boxes or outside of the gate, it's really difficult to supervise. So even if they were inside, it'd be easier to supervise with them in that area. So I don't see it as a problem. I think it just enhances our facility for track meets. So I think that would be a good way to go. And we will be adding concrete where the bleachers, and you know, when you walk in on the left, those bleachers usually sat in the dirt, grass. That will all be concrete as part of the project. So those bleachers will sit on a nice surface there too. We're going to keep them. You know, it's one of those things, long-term facilities, that is, you know, that's something that we could look at. They have upgraded a lot of them though, the boards. They have replaced boards on those. So I think that for the most part, they're, yeah. Other than that, I'm going to go on vacation this week, so I'm planning on being out of service. Literally. No, you know, and it's kind of I talked to Shane because I know when he was on vacation, he was self-service, and I'm like, mine's worse. It literally is. You have to drive somewhere to try and find self-service but I said, you know what? I like that. I need that. It'll be a good week away. But yeah, other than that, everything, you know, from the construction meeting is on track or slightly ahead of schedule. And that's what we want. A lot of things going on for sure. Yep. It'll be, yes, resurfaced with like a sheetrock. And, but I mean, that's another, another example of something that happened really fast. I mean, it literally, it was kind of gone in a day. Yeah, but it'll be nice, I know there's some people that will miss picking at the rocks and trying to find a loose one, but it'll be good to have those walls cleaned up.
Do we have any other new business? Do we have any other new business? Did you want to mention
Oh, yeah. Talked to Rebecca and looked at August 4th is a study session date. I believe that's a Wednesday. It would be after our July meeting. So we'll have a July meeting, but then after that, look at August 4th as a study session date. Yep. And you mentioned something briefly that came out of the equity report, and I know Mary touched on Infinite Campus and parents using that. One thing that came out of our equity report is that we do not have a real consistent way of communicating with our parents. We use Infinite Campus Seesaw in elementary, we use Google Classroom in middle school, and we use Schoology in the high school, and we use Infinite Campus for all three. That can be a very confusing thing for parents. Yeah. So looking at streamlining that and getting that, one thing that I did feel good about is that, Aptogy is going to be our new website with the app. That will be a much more uniform way that we can communicate with parents. And they will be able to get information a lot easier from us. And that is actually ADA compliant. And also, any parent that uses the app can pick the language. They will get the information in their native language that they select. So as far as a communication tool, Aptogy is going to be a real benefit for us as a district. I feel that it's going to be a great way to communicate and promote the good things that are happening in our district.
Nice. Is there any other new business? If not, can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion by Dewey. Second by Dale. We'll do a roll call. Vote. Dale?
Yes.
Dewey? Wendy? Jim? Missy? Lloyd? And Rebecca, yes. Meeting adjourned.